Thank you, everybody. It's an honor to be here. I thought you were going to say, Glenn, that everybody said, well, we should try to have Bill Moyers here. And I thought, great idea. Well, maybe we can settle for Bill Moyer, and that'll be okay. That'll be good enough, you know.
We knew who we wanted. We wanted you.
Yeah, okay, that's nice.
What we stand for the living one.
Thank you. I was struck as a young activist at a Catholic university when I was struggling with my own faith. And what I saw is a lot of I'm feeling very disappointed with the supposedly faith-based community I was part of. But you know, one of the things that I went to the earliest book of the New Testament, and the shortest one. Somebody remember which one it was? I mean, this is so long ago for me. I'm just what, Mark? And in the Jerusalem Bible translation, it kept saying that you know, Jesus spoke to the people and they saw they recognized his authority, or he spoke with authority, etc., etc. So I think this idea of authorship and listening to our internal authority, the resonance between us and the cosmos, and is very important as we respond to each moment every day, but also as we respond as organizations, or as collectives into the movement opportunities of this moment. And I love this song, and I think it just came to me as I was driving here that I wanted to share it with you. Because FOR, your goal is, in my opinion, thank you very much, Glenn, is, in my opinion, the only reasonable one, and to make it prevail is of vital importance. Have you heard that before? Right? Who said that? Your goal is, in my opinion, the only reasonable one, and to make it prevail is of vital importance, was said by Albert Einstein about the Fellowship of Reconciliation. Yeah. So, you know, what are some of the things in the Fellowship's history that you are most proud of? People popcorn that one out? What? Involvement in the civil rights movement. So in the 40s, FOR was part of the very first, in the 40s, a freedom ride. And then involved in the training for the Montgomery bus boycott. ACLU developed out of FOR during World War I in order to help conscientious objectors. Is that correct? Yeah, I think so. Other things.
Supported CEOs in World War II.
Yes, supported CEOs in World War II. Also in World War II, what did it do here in the Northwest, probably?
Was it about the Japanese?
Yes, about the internment of the Japanese. Any other ideas? Any other memories?
In Colombia.
Justice in Colombia. Anything else people are most proud of in your history? So, one of the pioneers in economic or environmental justice. You know, sought alliance with the Buddhist monks in Vietnam, opposed the death penalty, worked to reverse the Cold War, partnered with labor in the 30s to strengthen that movement and meet with leaders around the world. Let's see, a few other little things. Yes, exactly. The nonviolence trainings during the civil rights movement. You know, work delivering aid to the people of Iraq after the first Gulf War. The birth of the freeze movement also came from initiative FOR. So certainly. Your work is invaluable, and it's never been defined by one particular thing. You're not stuck, right? You are flexible. You can listen to what's going on around you and offer a response that is appropriate. So, you know, I propose that we talk honestly about the reality that we're experiencing even right now. That, you know, I'm halfway there to 92. I'm 46. Is there somebody in the room who's younger than me? There are 2 people in the room who are younger than me. Okay, so I thought that it might be, it saddens me to go to gatherings and at my age be the youngest person in the room. In the 80s, it was okay, and I'd meet, leaders like Swan Eagle or Joy Goldstein or other people, and I'd love to have the elders there, being there to help me bring me into this movement of movements. But I think it's a crisis at this point. And I've heard that FOR is in a bit of a crisis, both with their funding and with participation. And I know that there's, when we're in a crisis, we don't often relax and think about where it is that we're going to go, how we're going to get out of that crisis. We look for what other people are doing. We try to, imitate that. We could try to be like all the other nonprofits, have a better grant writer, and that the answers are about that. Setting up the right strategic plan. I just don't buy that. I'm not that organized, or I don't think that that's where the magic comes from. And it doesn't seem to me that the magic from FOR has ever come from being a predictable institution like other people. It seems to me like FOR hasn't been riding the wave. FOR's been at the tip of the wave. That's where I want Backbone to be. I say this all the time. I don't want to be in the wave. I want to be the foam at the edge of the wave. I want us to be framing the next thing, prepping our society and our movement and the people who will become the wave for that next piece, whatever's coming next. But in order to do that, we have to be really listening. We have to be paying attention, really paying attention, like a musician pays attention. My background is as a percussionist. So as a percussionist, you have a lot of flexibility in what you can do, right? So if the music is plodding along and it's boom, boom, and it's just boom, 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 well then you better put in some syncopation, But if the music is then boom, chick, da boom, boom, chick, da boom, chick, da boom, boom, chick might be a good response, right? You want to anchor it. Because we need structure and we need initiative. In organizations, in life, in music, in communication. We need repetition and we need novelty. And as social change agents, I believe ours is the similar role as movement builders. It isn't that we listen. And if you're I want to come back to that idea of authority. If you're on stage as a musician and you're thinking about, I should drink some of this. If you're on stage as a musician and you're wondering, well, what should I do? What will impress her over there? What's going to make him respect me? I'll do that crazy riff I was thinking about. Boy, the music is gone by that time, right? You aren't thinking about what you're doing and then doing it to impress people. You're not doing it to prove a point. You're doing it to make you're on stage to make music. And if you're afraid, because maybe that impulse to do that particular thing is not, what if I do it and it's not right? The music's gone. The opportunity is gone. So you have to be, as a musician, you have to trust your authority. And whenever you fail, it's a constant meditation on that experience of listening and responding. And the ideal place where you want to be, and how many of you are musicians? So, great. So, and you don't, this is such a universal principle, and that's why I love having a background in the arts. I think it really prepares you for doing other work, but that what was that universal principle, Bill? It was that we have to come with our own authority to our movement, to whatever our life, and we need to not be just thinking about how we're not trying to establish our radical identity. We need to listen to the whole, and experience ourselves not as an idea or an ego trying to add our special thing, but as part of that whole. And in that ideal moment in music is when you don't even know what you're doing, but you know that you love what you're hearing. And I think that's in life. That's that has relevance, I think. Another thing that has been really interesting for me in the last 10 years is to engage in so much spectacle. So many tactics, right? And then to gradually come into relationship with community organizers and community organizations, and get to start to glean lessons from them. And listening is part of a lesson that comes from community organizers, and I'll get to that in a second. But one of the other lessons from community organizers is that they know that tactics serve strategy, strategy serve goals, goals serve vision. They also know, and we'll talk about this later at the workshop, but they also know that we build from the power that we have to the power that we need. And I think it can be heroic, and it's good to be the people, and FOR has done a lot of being the hero out in front, standing up for world peace, etc. But I think in a movement, to build power, we have to be a little careful about spending too much time pissing in the wind for world peace. And we have to remember that a movement comes from making a difference in people's lives. And so if we want to get to that vision of world peace, we should be also listening to how are we going to make a difference in people's lives, and how are we going to build from the power we have to the power we need to actually realize that vision of world peace. So, it's another lesson that comes not from the organizers, but actually comes from the Pentagon, is that, which is ironic here, isn't it? But it's that we're not in a conflict. We're in it to build from the power we have to the power we need. It's not going to be easy, and there's a lot of interests that don't want us to make that shift, and I'm sorry, the nature of the conflict. So the nature of the conflict is not of equal power relationship, banging against each other, and whoever's the last person on the field wins. The relationship the nature of the conflict is a moral conflict, not a morality conflict, but a moral conflict. And that's why it's so important that our work come from our principles and resonate with our audience and resonate with our community. Because our only power in a moral conflict, in an asymmetrical conflict where we don't have the physical power, we don't have the economic power, is we have to have the moral power. We have to have the moral resonance with the people that we are in service to and in movement with, that they join us and they want to be part of it, and that we are in solidarity with them. So we have to be listening enough in order to do that and know what they need, etc. Here's something from has anybody ever heard of the Industrial Areas Foundation? It's that community organizer group, Saul Alinsky. Did he start it, or was he? I think so too, maybe. So this is what they say from their page. Issues, action, leaders, and IAF organizations emerge out of a cycle of organizing. This process begins at the local institutional level as a core team of leaders conduct relational meetings and house meetings. Relational meetings or one-on-one conversations provide an opportunity for two people to share their stories and interests in order to build a public relationship. House meetings provide a similar opportunity for small groups. Through these conversations, leaders begin to understand, value, and effectively tell their own stories and learn how to elicit stories from others. As issues emerge from these conversations, leaders are trained in research actions, meetings where potential issues are researched, and leaders learn about people who can effectively address those issues. Eventually, leaders, the people, engage in public actions, meetings with officials where leaders raise major issues and hold officials accountable for action to address those issues. Reflection and evaluation are primary tools throughout the organizing process. After every relational meeting, house meeting, research action, and public action, leaders reflect on what they have learned and evaluate their work thus far. So why do I go ahead and read that? Well, I think it's an interesting model. They didn't place an agenda on the community. They didn't give people their national, strategy and goals. They went into the community, they listen, and then they have the community build power and experience its own power. And that's why a community organized. That's why community organizers are so important. Spectacle has its limits. Well, marches have their limits. If we come into a musical situation and it's calling for one thing and all we can do is go like this, we're doomed. We have to have a variety of things to bring to the table, and one of those things is community organizing. So, again, as a 46-year-old guy who's been the youngest in the room many times, like one time in Kentucky, somebody came up to me and she said, maybe we should have you come. We've been really trying to get young people to our 4th of July parade. Maybe if you come and you build a puppet. And I said, forget the puppet. You don't need a puppet once a year to try to debate the young people in. That's not how it's going to work. I just don't believe that. I don't buy it. I think it's the wrong approach. And sadly, getting the young people's attention can be hard at where we're at, even at 46, bridging that gap. But now we have the Occupy movement. There's a lot of young people out there doing stuff, and it's exciting, and I'm really excited about that. But those youth still need our support, and they need training, and they need mentorship, and they need accountability, but they also need autonomy. And because our movement is in such dire need of actual organizers. Like, who's really doing community organizing these days? 3 people are doing canvassing, and people are doing, raising funds and signing people up and getting memberships, but that's not organizing. The Occupy movement needs something from us, I believe. And not just the Occupy movement. The movement of movements that is the foundation of the Occupy movement, this populist moment, needs something from us. It needs more than spectacle. It needs more than puppets. It needs training, etc. And it needs us to. It needs organizers. So what I said to the woman in Kentucky is I asked her a question. I said, "How many people are on your email list?" She said, "Well, 300." I said, 300 people. What if, you think 300 people, how many people can afford $5 a month to something? Raise your hands, please. If you can afford $5 a month for something, then, $5 a month, if you had 300 people, an average of $5 a month, that's $1,500 for a stipend for an organizer. What if you've heard of CSAs, community-supported agriculture? Well, what if FOR's response to this crisis isn't to run to the nonprofit industrial complex, but what if it's to go back into the history of community organizing? And what if it's to bring up and mentor and support young people who are excited to be engaged, who need to develop a political analysis, who are curious, who have time to read a book, for goodness sakes, who are able to be out there in actions? Why not instead of community, not just community, we have community-supported agriculture. Let's have community-supported organizers. What if each community that's a part of the FOR community pooled its money to support one of these blood-boiling young people who's ready to do stuff? Because that young person, they can probably get a lot done and be immersed, which is what we need, immersion learning and all that. It's what we need to really grow in this work. And they can immerse themselves for $1,500 a month. And then we start, and we should give them some deliverables. And there should be accountability, but not too much. Now, in Kentucky, I'd say, have a deliverable. Make sure that they organize the thing for the parade. Then you'll have young people at the parade. Have them do something else during the winter. Have them, send them to the Backbone Campaign training. Send them to another organizer training. Give them training. Give them a couple of deliverables. Give them mentorship. And let them be. And we could call them CSOs, community-supported organizers. So, I know I want to wrap up, but another thing someone said to me is, you can do anything if you don't need credit for it. And one of the things I love about this, one of these pieces in this, is that I stood unwound beneath the skies and clouds unbound by laws. The cry and rain like a trumpet sang and asked for no applause. It's about listening and responding with generosity, and not about, it's not about us getting credit for everything, right? And let's just close with Einstein's quote. He said about FOR that your goal is, in my opinion, the only reasonable one. To make it prevail is of vital importance. Fellowship, reconciliation. Those are beautiful, big words. And they are really important. And we have to honor that. And listening is part of it. And bringing in that new generation and enabling and empowering them to be the potential leaders they can be and they can find their true authority is, I think, one of the paths forward, at least as it occurs to me. That's for now. Thank you.